If you're not addressing the blind spots in your online security, you cannot prevent the costly impact of lost or hacked data. Today's guest is Ralph Russo. Ralph is retired from the New York Police Department after over 20 years and served as the commanding officer of an organized crime control task force of local, state, federal law enforcement. He is currently the director of Tulane University School of Professional Advanced Information Technology Programs, where he has taught in both Homeland Security and Information Technology programs. Ralph holds a Bachelor of Business Administration degree in business and a Master's of Science degree in Information Technology, and as an entrepreneur, he has co-owned 2 startup technology firms. I'm your host, Chris Parker, and this is the Easy Prey Podcast. Ralph, thank you so much for coming on the Easy Prey Podcast today.
Thanks, Chris. It's great to be here.
So can you give myself and the audience a little bit of background at who you are and what you do?
Sure. I'm Professor Ralph Russo. I work at Tulane University's School of Professional Advancement. I am the chair and program director for information technology programs at the university.
Awesome. And so you obviously deal with cybersecurity. Did you have prior to, I know that you had done work before coming to Tulane. What spiked your interest in cybersecurity?
Well, I always had an interest in technology and programming computers, networking computers, going all the way back to the 90s. And as I married up my interest in homeland security, criminal justice with technology, I found myself looking at cybersecurity ever more deeply.
Awesome. And so I know while we've talked about, information security, information technology has been around for decades. I think cybersecurity is not the sort of thing that has been taught at universities until the recent past. I know when I was in college, I don't think that even cybersecurity was even a phrase that people used. And now, you can't turn on the news for more than 15 minutes without someone talking about a data breach or a compromise or cybersecurity, this or that. So it's really like this field that has gained a lot in prominence recently, but also like having to figure out how to teach it, I imagine has been quite interesting. So can we talk about the cybersecurity field and kind of what's going on in the field?
Absolutely. Well, I always think that cybersecurity, the old saying, the appetite comes with the eating. As more and more people became dependent upon systems, those systems became ever more important and ever more valuable. And, as soon as you have valuables, there is going to be some people looking to remove them from you. So cybersecurity has grown. I created and taught the first course in cybersecurity at Tulane University. I believe that was 2010, and it's just grown, and it's good. It's expected to continue to grow. For example, cyber attacks have grown over 50% just since 2020, and they cost the world $6 trillion annually in 2021, according to CISO magazine. And with that, the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics predicts that jobs in cybersecurity will grow by 31% more by 2029, which is 7 times greater than the U.S. average growth rate for jobs. So this is going to keep growing exponentially, it seems, and also it's as educators, it's our job to see what skills and talents need to be nurtured to have our students do things that'll give them a rewarding career and enriching their lives. So cybersecurity is something people get excited about, and so we make sure we scratch that itch.
Yeah, definitely. I wonder, what are some of the trying to figure out the skill sets, or not so much the skill sets, but the kind of mindset that makes for a good cybersecurity student?
Yeah, I mean, it's, you hate to generalize because there's always exceptions to the rule, but people, very much like other forms of technology, people who are curious, people who like to follow leads to their natural end. New York Times ran a great piece yesterday on DNA investigators and people on their own time going off and doing investigations that were traditionally left to police. Those type of people with that kind of interest that are willing to follow a trail, to dig in deep. That curiosity, I think, is something that a lot of people who are really good at securing systems have. And forensic and also forensic follow-up of systems that have been, violated.
Kind of the people who like to pull at threads and what happens when I do this?
That's exactly right. And people who see a door and it's closed, they don't just see a door, they see what other way could I get in? How often is that door locked? Who locks it? How strong is the code? People just who have a natural, they look at the world from a position of curiosity about what if things didn't go what if people didn't come in the door? What if they started coming in the window? So that kind of curiosity, that kind of mindset, I think is great for the field.
I think I was talking with someone else previously about this, and it's the concept of trying to get people to think way outside of the box. And it's not even a box, it's a circle. It's not a box anymore. And people who just kind of don't accept the status quo in the way that they think seem to be attracted and do well in cybersecurity and in information technology field.
And that's, I would agree. And to me, sometimes when I teach a fundamentals type course, sometimes a light bulb comes on when I relate cybersecurity to traditional security. Like you could spend a couple hours talking about defense in depth or layered security, but when you tell them that's not a new concept, look at the way kingdoms and castles were constructed. You don't just get over the first wall and next thing you're in the king's lap. There are multiple ways to which you need to continue to breach before you get to the most important people or the most important information. So sometimes you see the light bulb come on when you start relating these things to traditional security, because everybody could relate to, for instance, you talk about the threat to a large company system from an integrated smaller company, that, for example, the Target breach, they wrote in from an integrated system. And, you could get puzzled looks. But when you start talking about, I always say, what is a $10,000 door with a $2 lock worth in terms of security? $2. And so the light bulb will come on there too. And you start realizing that it seems very nebulous, but it's really not.
Mm-hmm. I've also heard the analogy and seen the picture of you've got this really nice gigantic safe door with all this fancy lock on it, and it's just in a wall that's made out of sheetrock and 2x4s, and just punch a hole in the wall.
I've actually seen that, and I won't say where, but in a fusion center, I've seen this amazing, ram-proof steel door, and the walls of the center were sheetrock over traditional 2x4. So actually aluminum studs. So yeah, that would take about a second to break through that.
and it's, I think that's the cyber, the kind of the picture that we have to watch out for. Kind of, you're so in the big picture of like, oh, we just need big doors, that we start forgetting about the finer details of things.
Yeah, and understanding that a single door is never the answer. You may want a big door, but you're going to also want some other hurdles for people to get through.
So how does that work in terms of making sure that you're either not so focused on the key card lock on the door versus what does the whole castle look like? Yeah, I assume that like there's different people that it's very easy for them to focus on, well, we need multiple layers of defense, but they don't think about the specifics of it, or they're so down into the weeds on the specifics that they lose the big picture.
Yeah, and it helped. That's why, again, to go back to it, I've always found it helps if you think of it in terms of trying to solve a physical security problem. Retrofitting security rather than building for security. So much harder to secure something that you're trying to retrofit in real life. Well, you buy a warehouse and it's got 100 windows in it and four doors, and what do you do? And think through it, and you got a safe in the middle. What do you do? Well, trying to educate people, and using real use cases, and also providing labs, which is, we do both of those things in our courses, that make the students experience how easy it is to get around something and then have free reign in a system versus having to defeat several blocks.
Mm-hmm. In your courses, do you teach both red team and blue team, or are you just thinking from one perspective or the other?
No, we try to change the perspective to look at it both ways, from pen testing to blocking to creating a security posture that's viable. But we also look at it to change that a little, to turn the prism. We look at it. We look at our courses from three ways. One is the technical and academic, and that's understanding and going hands-on with technology. But then we also want our students to understand these things from a leadership and an ability to communicate to, say, for example, to C-suite stakeholders or whatever. And the third way, rather technical and from a leadership perspective, is governance, repeatable success. And so we try to frame everything we've got from those perspectives, all three, because you're going to need all three. That takes away that kind of myopic technical thing that happens, right, which you alluded to, and it provides our students with the ability to step back while they're technical. It provides them the ability to step back and create a repeatable process.
So do you see difficulties with kind of the leadership and the governance aspect of it and I think maybe with like younger tech companies are more in tune to cybersecurity, but I think of like companies that have just traditionally been, we're pen and paper, we don't need cybersecurity. Is it harder to bring some of those old models, the old business models into the current way of doing things?
Well, I think we're getting better, but are we getting better fast enough? Are we doing enough? For example, I don't know if there's so many of those old, hey, I'm pen and paper type things around. They're around for sure, but I think I try to look at things on a continuum of maturity. From the pen and paper to nobody will ever hack my system. Why do they want me? All the way down to the processes, governance, systems, and security that is absolutely the most mature and informed by best practice, right? So there's a long continuum there, and what businesses should be doing is making their way down that continuum as time goes by to getting stronger and better at cybersecurity. I think there's a lag there. And I think there's still a misunderstanding that even if you're a small business or a mid-sized business, you may be a target, and you should consider yourself a target. And so you may be a target, but you should say, I am a target. And because for no other reason than you may be a stepping stone in an advanced persistent attack, you may be a stepping stone to somebody else. That's it. But along the way, you can suffer damage and brand damage and so on and so forth.
And I suppose it's just thinking of it from the perspective, if money's flowing through your business bank account, there is something that people want from you.
That's right. Or just, I mean, there's all kinds of things that are being missed, right? And sometimes it's the money they want. Sometimes it's the data. And somebody says, well, you know what? My data is encrypted and salted, and they're not going to take it. And well, if they can encrypt it, then you're going to pay for it, right? While you're paying them in Bitcoin, right, or cryptocurrency, while they're doing that, they may keep a copy of your database. Why? They can't, right? They don't, because in 5 years, the technology may be such 10 years, quantum computing, that they'll burn through that encryption in seconds. So they'll just hold on to it until they can decrypt it in seconds. And so if you've got data, if you've got money, or if you're a stepping stone to someone else, you're a target.
Yeah. And then there's just people who are opportunistic. You might not be a specific target, but they're just going after anybody and everybody they can get into the systems of.
Yeah, that's right. And again, a lot of people say, well, if I get cryptojacked and my stuff's encrypted, well, I'll just pay and it'll be good. Okay, but what are you going to pay to restore your systems if you need to? What are you going to pay to restore your brand? What if you need to hire lawyers at that point? These costs add up rapidly.
Yeah.
And other people say, well, I'll just get cyber insurance, right? That's kind of the new approach. I'll get cyber insurance. Well, the insurance companies, and this is good, by the way, this is going to have a great effect on our overall cybersecurity posture. As more people go for cyber insurance, insurance companies are requiring a certain level of cyber process and cybersecurity just to give you the insurance. So that's kind of creating a baseline amongst companies that are seeking this protection. And I think that's good for the market in general. But just saying, I'll just go out and get some cyber insurance may also be expensive, as you're being told you need to take certain actions you need multi-factor authentication, you need to communicate through a VPN, you need to, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I think that is one of those good things of the compliance aspect of insurance and things like that. Well, you have a minimum responsibility that you have to maintain on your platform now in order for the insurance to be effective.
Yeah, and it's only going to get tighter. I mean, anybody who feels that it's not coming to them, if you're a business or an organization or a government agency, anybody who feels like it's not coming to you, it's only going to get tighter. I think in the near future that you won't even be able to connect to certain systems. You'll have a gateway. You'll have a kind of a gateway, gate check kind of a situation where if you're not running the latest version of the operating system and it's not up to date, you'll be denied access to a site, to a financial site or to a business site. Or if you have certain types of software on your system, you'll be denied. And right before you're ever able to connect. And I see that coming.
Yeah, I mean, it is a sign that, if someone's using Firefox 45, if they're using a version that's 50 versions old on their browser, then there are probably other things that they're not doing. And
exactly. I totally see that an automated risk-based approach to allowing connectivity. It's on the internet, but is it in the future? It's on the internet, but maybe there's an additional step there to connect. And so and anybody who wants to come through my site, is going to be forced to go to. And it's going to be automated and it's going to be seamless, but it could lead to rejection, right? Mm-hmm. You could, Windows 98 connection to my financial institution. So.
Yeah, they're like, nope, not going to happen.
Exactly.
So, are there, what are some of the blind spots that you're trying to address in the industry through your programs?
Yeah. So, as I mentioned, we're trying to ensure that cybersecurity. So, for example, we have a Master of Science in Cybersecurity Management, and that degree, while there are technical pieces throughout it, there are labs throughout it. It focuses on the governance aspect and best practice, so that a student can leave the program, or while they're in the program, for that matter, since we have online courses at night and completely online courses, while they're in the program or after they get out of the program into industry, they provide value on day one and can bring some of that best practice with them. They could implement, they could look at what NIST has got and say, this is what we need to be doing for best practice. They could understand the idea of continuous improvement along the scale of a maturity model. Pick a maturity model in cyber, but they could understand what that means and take a company there. Even as a new employee, they could kind of use that voice to say, well, we could be getting better at this.
And is some of it, do you think, on the government governance side that I'm going to make vast generalizations here? Is that a lot of board of directors are people more advanced, well along in their careers and older, and they haven't had the experience with cybersecurity issues, so that's just not even on their mindset? Do you think some of it is just purely an issue of cybersecurity being around long enough that the people that are now starting to sit on boards have had cybersecurity incidents in their careers and they're now thinking about it?
I do. I think that cybersecurity is money, and I think on boards and at the CEO and at levels, you've got to understand. Day and night, you're thinking about the finances and the profit and the sales of your company. So now it's a money thing, and the idea of when a certain company got hacked and their CEO, went in front of Congress and said, well, I leave that to my tech people. I think those days are over.
Yeah.
I think you can't be the CEO of almost every modern company and organization and completely disavow yourself of anything technical. I think those days are over. And because it's money. At the end of the day, it's money. Yeah, and it's brand, and it's all the other things, right?
Like you said, it's if you're the victim of a breach, whether it's your platform, your customer data, that the cost to undo that to your reputation, the processes that have to go through to remediate things. It's no longer just a $1 million fine or, I just got to make this disclosure that everybody else, talks, we value your security and privacy. But now, companies are getting fined, and it's destroying the reputations of companies now when they have breaches.
Yeah, no doubt. And along with those, and that's a huge part of it, destroying reputations. I hope it never happens, but if a major bank was hacked, and it caused some interruption to people's relationship with the bank, that would almost be unrecoverable at that point. And also, when these companies go down for the amount of time, you discover a breach and they've been in your system for 2 months, and they've created administrator accounts and covered their tracks and or exfiltrated information. You may be down for days, week. In that time, you've also, what kind of cost is that? So from a leader's perspective at the C-level, president, CEO, you've got to understand that that's a key part of your business. Even if you have a CIO, the joke used to be CIO stood for career is over, right? Because you'd be the first one to get blamed. I think that's slowly going away. I think it's all hands on deck because of the risk involved, and businesses have to look at risk, cyber risk, market risk, So,
and it's not just Fortune 500. It's not just big entities that have to worry about this, and that's the conversation I've had with small business owners. And maybe we're not talking about cybersecurity. We're maybe just talking about backing up your data. If you lose your company server, can you afford to be down for a week as you recover it?
Yeah, you probably can't.
Can you? How can you run your business not being able to communicate with your customers for a week?
Yeah, it's tax season, right? So if you're a CPA and you were to get hacked now, you might lose your business. You might be done. And so we're seeing a lot of small to mid-sized businesses, in addition to everyone else, but we're seeing them pivot to the cloud. This has been going on for a while, but more and more people say, well, I don't have what it takes to secure what I have, so I'll just, I'll leverage the cloud because, Google or Microsoft or, whoever will secure my information, right? Amazon, right? And those people can secure your information, but unless you're going from the public internet, your customers are going public internet to the cloud, not passing through your business at all, there's still a responsibility at the business level and for all size businesses to secure between the cloud and the business, right? And we find that most cloud type hacks that we think of as cloud type hacks are really happening. The weak point is on the user side.
Yeah.
So there's a responsibility that comes with that as well.
Yeah. In the cloud doesn't automatically mean secure.
That is correct. Like everything else, you need a plan you need a plan for any business change, including technical, and you've got to follow through to make sure it's viable and secure and all the things you need to do.
I remember seeing a sticker that says there is no cloud; it's just somebody else's computer.
That's exactly right. I mean, surprisingly, in some of our real introductory courses to undergraduates, one of the first things we tell them is, well, the internet is really just a bunch of cables dropped under the ocean and through your neighborhood. And that's all this giant network is. It's physical. There are machines everywhere. There's no vapid kind of nebulous kind of thing going on. These are just somebody else in cloud in particular. This is somebody else managing your stuff for you.
Yeah.
But it's all machines, and they could be, as we're seeing now in the Ukraine, you could bomb those things, and you could burn those things, and you could target those things, yeah. Right?
When there's physical infrastructure can be targeted regardless of politics.
That is correct, and it's you can bet that countries have lists of technical comms type stuff that on their list of to hit should it comes to that. And we saw that in Georgia. We saw that in not the country Georgia, and we saw that in other activities around the world where the first thing they did was, although not so much in the current conflict in the Ukraine, but in other activities, cyber attacks led before the kinetic attacks occurred. So we could expect to see more of that, I think. I think I'm not the only one surprised that we didn't see more of it in this particular instance. But
is that something that, not that you teach people how to conduct cyber wars, but is that now starting to come into play in education, of starting to think more of state actors and trying to protect systems from not just the horrible stereotype of the guy in his mom's basement, but realizing that these are now hacking is now being done by major corporations, by nation states. It's not massive criminal organizations. It's not just some random guy anymore.
Well, and that's correct. And we actually have courses at the graduate and undergraduate level that look at cyber threats from that perspective. And so we do teach it because it's part of the business is understanding threat actors, whether they be nation state or script kiddies using a piece of software that someone else wrote that makes it really easy to conduct a hack. We make sure they've got the students have the full view of the threat picture, and part of that has to include nation state and it's it's easy to say Russia and China, but everybody, including our country, is engaged in a cyber buildup, right? And that's part of the current military picture. It's part of the levers of cyber power, and which are part of another lever like diplomacy or physical kinetic war is cyber attacks. And so as countries pull these levers, it's important to understand the motivations and the threat.
Mm-hmm. So when we're talking about nation states and organized crime, is that where kind of the new malware packages are coming from, or is this still from individual hackers that are building these packages?
Oh, I think it's coming from everywhere, and I think that nation states are obviously incentivized to do it, but if you discover a 0-day in your basement tonight, Chris, and it's a serious one that could give serious access, you could probably get on the dark web and sell it for $1 million if it's the right kind today, and you may have nation state bidders. Which I'm sure I know you know, but I'm sure your listeners know 0-day that's how many days it's known to have been a threat. No one has a chance to remediate it yet or patch it. It's a vulnerability that the bad guys know about and the good guys haven't taken steps to remediate it again. So from that perspective, nation states are obviously interested, but since there's money involved and financial advantage and military advantage, they're coming from everywhere and anywhere because the incentive is that great.
Mm-hmm. And I suppose that kind of leads to the incentive of trying to counter it through bounty programs and things like that, where we're going to offer you money for finding that 0-day and pay you, and it's not going to be illegal.
Right. That exists, but and it's a great idea. I think it's great. And there's actually an organization out there who will pay. You don't have to sell your Microsoft vulnerability to Microsoft. There's actually an organization out there that will buy it from you and then tell Microsoft about it. Mm-hmm. It's all above board. But I worry that the amounts of money that we're talking from, the white hat guys don't come close to the amounts of money from the black hat guys, right? So that's a concern.
Yeah, you just hope that I'm willing to take less money for it not to be illegal will overweigh if I do something illegal, I'll get more money.
Yeah. Yeah. I like a lot of other things, it comes down to that kind of personal makeup. But I agree. I think you want to make it as easy as possible. You want to compensate it as well as you can. And you want to make sure that the powers that be look to punish the ones who are selling it in the dark web, but less so for people trying to come forward. We've seen examples of people telling companies, hey, I've got this thing, and the company's just blowing them off until they say, you know what, I'm going to publish it now. But then, they've been arrested at that. Things have happened, but hopefully there's less of that going on right now.
Yeah. We do want as much responsible disclosure as possible.
Absolutely. Listen, the software is so complex. How many lines of code are in a Microsoft Office, and how many lines of code are in Windows operating system or Linux? I mean, there's going to be vulnerabilities, right?
Yeah.
And you want a process to identify those and get them patched as quickly as possible.
And I suppose some aspects of cybersecurity is risk mitigation. We're working from the position of assuming that systems are going to be compromised,
right?
And rather than saying, okay, let's nothing can be compromised. Okay, if this gets compromised, how do we prevent people from getting from there into other platforms and it kind of spreading? Poor choice of words, like a virus.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, in our programs, we teach risk management, risk analysis, and then mitigation ways to mitigate things. So again, you should assume you're going to be hacked. And if they want to bad enough, they probably can. But there are ways to, segregation of your systems. Does your billing clerk need access to the point of purchase server where the credit cards database server where the credit cards are stored, right? Segregate your systems. Your backup should be as offline as possible, and should not be physically in the same places or even on the same company network. So there are many ways to mitigate these things, and that's why we look at governance as so important in our programs, because just the very activity of reviewing your risks, from the most outlandish risk to something you should have saw coming, What if there's a tornado? What if there's a hurricane? What if somebody plants a bomb? What happens if we lose this? Where are we?
Yeah.
And then say, okay, well, we wouldn't be in such bad shape if we took this low cost activity, spend the $10,000 to avoid the $100,000 in loss, right?
Yeah.
And so governance will continue to be important and growing as time goes by, and fealty to best practice is a must, and that's where I see some lacking, and repeatable success in cybersecurity that I think is growing but needs to grow more.
Mm-hmm. Where do you see the cybersecurity field going over the next few years?
Yeah, I think it's going to be there's going to be more frameworks, maturity models, best practice that are continually fleshed out with recommendations, and that's kind of going to bring the level of security up in the country up. I think that again, cyber insurance is playing a part in this, and they can force companies of all sizes to be better at these things and actually provide through their analysis and review before they provide you insurance. They could actually provide you the tips you need to get better. I see cybersecurity being an arms race. And I don't think I'm the first to say that, but it's going to be an arms race. If we mentioned quantum computing before, and quantum computing to attack encryption, well, your cybersecurity then, and your analysis and your IDS IPS teams will all get smarter with faster AI driven analysis. So it's an arms race. They'll get better. We'll get better.
And hopefully the consumer wins in all of this and not loses.
Yeah. I think again, I think some of the move to the cloud is good for consumer cybersecurity, and I think the overall. I mean, there isn't a day you don't open the Wall Street Journal or New York Times and see an article on cybersecurity from one perspective or another that can't help to be noticed by everyone, including consumers.
Yeah. Even
if they don't really understand what that means, they know it's something they should be concerned about. And I'll give you an example of that. A friend of mine, so we're in Louisiana, down New Orleans, and a friend of mine said, hey, online betting has come to Louisiana, so I could go on, DraftKings or whatever some of these things are. He said, but when I went to sign up, they asked me for my social security number, my date of birth, and all of this stuff. And this was not somebody who's in technology. This is not somebody who's in IT and not somebody at the university. This is a friend of mine who, works 9 to 5, blue collar. And he said, should I be putting that stuff in there? I said, well, you're going to have to put it in there because if you get winnings, there's going to be taxes for sure. But did you look into how they secure that information? And I don't have anything good or bad to say about it because I haven't looked into it. But he was concerned enough about his information being eventually stolen by a hacker that he asked me about it.
That honestly, to me, that's a great sign that someone. I hear too many cases where people just the field asked me for this really personal stuff. Let me just type it in so I can get through the gate. But someone's like, asking the right questions. Well, why do you need that, and what's going to happen if it gets out there?
Yeah, I like to think that that over time we're just slowly getting better at that, and more aware, and that people just won't click a link because it's in an email. But we know it's still a problem, right? We know phishing is still a problem, and spear phishing, to target people that they feel will result in big paydays. We know that's a problem, but as companies do training, and many companies will send out a phishing message, and there are companies that specialize in helping companies secure against phishing. So as we start to see these niche businesses pop up, and as we start to see employees kind of tested and warned, and it's in the news every day, you like to think that that's kind of raising all boats, right?
Yeah.
Right.
I did see an article today on a new one that I hadn't thought of before. Was threat actors, whatever you want to call them, using compromised email accounts of people in law enforcement and using those emails to correspond with businesses and to get them to turn over personal information. Oh, yeah. I'm talking with a police officer. I'm more inclined to share stuff than I would with a random person on the internet.
Yeah.
And now having to think like, oh gosh, if people getting emails, okay, you say you're a police officer, but now I need you to send this over and prove it. And well, I need to take your subpoena and go back to my lawyer to verify that it's a real subpoena.
Yeah. I mean, that's the danger. I mean, cybercrime undermines a lot of the good that all this technology does. It reduces trust and it introduces fear and confusion. It's a natural kind of a thing, but it's not a good thing. And I think that local governments and state governments for sure, but local governments do have a lot of catching up to do. I would say local governments are particularly targeted and probably don't have the budget. They've got huge stores of data, and they probably don't have the budget, or they haven't seen fit to move the budget to secure that information. For a school system may have PII for thousands of students.
Yeah, going back 20 or 30 years.
That's right. And somebody who's 10 years old now, if you have that social security number and date of birth, that person's going to be around a long time to be impersonated. And so it's troubling. And I do think that not to single out local government, but they don't have giant budgets, but they do have giant stores of PII that are valuable. And also they carry like you said, impersonating the police in our lives, they carry authority, and it's automatically gained. So I like to think that multi-factor authentication is going to be a solution to some of this, and on mail accounts. And I like to think that training is part of it for everybody, but there's still growing pains, and there's going to be for a while.
Yeah. So if people want to learn more about the programs that your department offers at Tulane, where can they find that information?
Yeah, I mean, our website at sopa.tulane.edu, and then just put /IT, and that's it, sopa.tulane.edu/IT, and you'll see all my programs. And we've got on-ground programs if you're in the New Orleans area. We've got online programs, and again, we try to ensure that you get an education that is valuable in the workplace from day one.
One of the things I love about what's happened in the last, let's say, 10 years is that anyone anywhere in the world can now go to an incredible school in an incredible program without having to be in a particular location. To me, it's just like, this is really cool. If you want to learn something and you're passionate about it, you can find the resources out there to help you learn and be the best in your field that you can be.
Yeah, it's amazing. And, I get asked a lot, a lot of people contact me about the programs. And of course, I like to think we're building Tulane quality courses and offering them in ways that people can access them. And I have students from all over the world, and I actually have instructors from all over the world who teach online for me, adjunct instructors. So I'm able to bring the best and the brightest, people who are in industry and have terminal degrees, or at the very least master's degrees for undergraduate students, and we're able to bring all this quality together and offer some great courses. I think it's wonderful. And I'm glad to see. Another thing I get asked a lot, if I could kind of inject this, is people come to me and say, "Hey, I've got a great job. I write code for Acme, and I get paid good. And why do I need a college degree? Shouldn't I just go get a professional certificate, a cert from Amazon or Google or Microsoft or CompTIA or somebody?" And my answer is yes. And like, what? Well, certifications are awesome. And by the way, we're partners with CompTIA, partners with AWS, partnered with EC Council for certified ethical hacking. You can earn those professional certifications in some of my courses, right? But at the same time, certifications prepare you to do something right now. To turn, as we say, the nerd knob right now, whatever that is, right? But an academic foundational education prepares you to understand how it all works, not just the how, but the why and the evolution, so that when the technology changes, you're not left in the dust. So I tell my students, get your professional cert. You can get them here at Tulane at a discount. Get your academic degree. They said, well, okay, but what if I got nothing at all? I'm still coding and making money, I said, all right, well, if you're okay, you're 22. If you're okay with being a 50-year-old coder and your boss is 27 making more money than you, then that's great. But if to have, you may, and that is fine for people. There's nothing wrong with that. But you may find that you aspire to something else, leadership. You start to see that you've got the ideas in the room and you like to be a leader in a company. That's what these programs and even these professional certifications will prepare you for, the wider scope.
Yeah, that's great. Ralph, thank you so much for coming on the Easy Pray podcast today.
Great to see you, Chris, and it's great to be here. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Easy Pray podcast. If you found this episode beneficial, please share it with a friend. Notes and a transcript of this episode with Ralph Russo can be found at easypray.com/119.